Durjoy Datta, who is here to talk about his newest book, World's Best Ex-Girlfriend. I can see some very excited people in the audience, mainly young girls. No surprises there. Durjoy Datta is, of course, a best-selling author of fiction for young adults, and he writes extensively on the various facets of young love. In conversation with Durjoy is Ranjini Ghosh. Ranjini is a trained classical dancer. She's also a very eminent young theatre practitioner. And I will now invite both of them up on stage. Durjoy, Ranjini.
Sitting with a man who needs no introduction. Big cheer, please, for the man of the moment, Mr. Durjoy Datta. So today we will be discussing his newest book, World's Best Ex-Girlfriend, which I'm sure most of you have read. And if you haven't, it's available at the bookshop. And so please do head and buy a copy, get it signed, and do read it. And also we will be discussing as why will literature always need a love story. So, Durjoy, before we start talking about the book, I would like to ask you something. So, you know, as we all know, romance has been the most popular genre of fiction since time immemorial. So, when you started writing, what drew you to choose romance as your genre? And what is it that you think draws audiences back to this genre time and time again?
So I did not know that I was a romance writer. I was told that I was a romance writer when my first book got published. So I have been a reader all my life, and all my reading choices were dictated by my parents. And so I never grew up reading romance. And I mean, for the longest time, I did not read any romance novels. But when I wrote my first book, I was in college, and I was writing about the things that were important to me and important to my friends. And the only few things that were on our minds were, where is our career going to be and who are we dating? So I wrote a book primarily around these two things. And because when I submitted it to a publisher and they had to slot it, so there was a term back in 2007, 2008, which was called campus novels. But campus novels swiftly got associated with bad writing. Not that my writing was any good, but they said, okay, let's not call it campus novels. What else can we call it? So they said, yeah, there's a love story in the book, and it's pretty strong. So let's call it romance. And so when it went out to the bookstores, it was slotted in the romance section. And since then, it's been easier to say that, okay, what do you write? You write romance. So earlier I was the prince of romance writing, and now that I'm slightly older, Penguin calls me the king of romance writing. But what I consider myself as, I like to write romance. I like to write soap operas. I mean, I like to write about characters who have big plot points going around in their lives, and there is a bit of romance in it. I never think of any story as romance first, because I mean, that's not what I've read, so I don't naturally gravitate towards that. But I do, I mean, I have realized that romance is what a lot of romance is why, you know, readers pick up my books, and that's why our marketing, all my titles are they sort of lend and sort of tilt towards romance. But having said that, I've written books that are primarily romance as well.
Amazing. So coming to World's Best Ex-Girlfriend, it is in many ways more than one, a continuation of World's Worst Best Girlfriend. It follows the story of Dakshanachal. If you've read the book, you would know that. So when you were writing World's Best Girlfriend, did you think that when writing that book that there would be a sequel, or was it an afterthought and something that just happened?
How many of you have read any of these books? Okay, guys, it's important to buy the books. Whether you read it or not, it's secondary. Please go ahead and buy the books. It's very important. I wanted to write, so I'm getting older, right? So for me to think that, okay, I'm going to write a love story that's set in college is becoming harder every year. So now that I'm in my late 30s, I wanted to write one book that sort of is a love story that spans across a couple of decades, and that's where the genesis of World's Best Girlfriend, which was the first book of the duology, started from. That okay, let me catch these characters when they are 17. I will take the story right up to when they are in their late 30s, and let's see how their love story sort of pans out across 2 decades, with the caveat that okay, they will never be together. So they will meet every few years, and they will fundamentally change as people, and that is what will keep them from being together. So that was where the kernel of the idea started. And because I had made up my mind that okay, this story is going to be a long one, I wrote a huge book which was unpublishable because it was too long, and in the price point that we wanted to sell at, we could not sell it at that point. But because the characters were meeting every 5 years, we could neatly divide the book into parts. So that is where it started from. Okay, let us see that where can we find breaks, where are the big plot points, and where does each character's life sort of fundamentally changes. So that is what we did. That was our first exercise. Okay, let's see how many parts this book can become. And then we neatly divided into two, and that's where I know this is very technical, but the first book came out to be World's Best Girlfriend, and the second book was World's Best Ex-Girlfriend. So in the starting, I knew it's going to be a longer book. I did not know that it's eventually going to be a duology.
So, both your all your characters, such interesting characters, they span decades. So, the question to you is, did any of the characters surprise you while writing them? Or like maybe they ended up differently than you had initially imagined, maybe in this book or any of your previous books?
So this is something, this conversation is very weird because whenever I'm stuck somewhere, and this is a phrase that I tell my wife a lot of times, that the characters are not listening to me. And she's like, what kind of a weird sentence is this? You are the one writing the story. You have created this character. You can make them do anything. And I was like, no, this happens. Please believe me that the characters are not listening to me. They want to do their own thing. It's only after I went to one of these lit fests and she was there and another writer friend was there. And she said the same thing, that the characters are not listening to them. That's why I'm stuck. I'm like, see, this happens. So it happens a lot of time that the characters also chart. You have a rough idea of where the story is going to go, but as you write the character, there are so many new nuances that come in, and I mean, slight changes happen that suddenly by the end of it, you realize that you have veered off in some other course, and now you have to course correct, and sometimes it's not possible. So since I've been doing this for the last 15 years, I know that this is going to happen, and whenever it happens, it's only exciting, because the most boring part of writing any book is the middle. When you're starting a book, it's very exciting. It's a new idea. You want to have a crack at it. You're just introducing the characters to yourself and to the world. It's incredible. The ending is always great because you're finishing the first draft and you finally know what the story is, and you want to get cracking in the second draft because you finally know what the story is, and now you can start sharpening it. It's only in the middle where you know what's going to happen and you're just expanding things, you're just putting in words to that story is where it gets boring. So when your characters start doing their own thing that you do not expect is where it gets interesting for me. So whenever that happens, I'm all for it. And this book especially also gave me the chance to take characters in wildly different directions, because every time the characters met, they were meeting after 4 years, so I could change them wildly. So someone who was, say, in the first part of the book was a privileged boy who did not have to care about the future, was suddenly trying to make ends meet with half his family gone in an accident. So these are the things that I could do without taking them through like a lot of steps and a lot of chapters. So it's always exciting when the characters want to do their own things.
So essentially all the characters ended up differently, if you could say that?
I mean, there's this phrase shape of thesis, right? That
yes.
You change one thing, and does the final thing can you even call it shape of thesis? So that is what I did with the characters. I changed little things, and at the end the characters they are completely different. So the people that they fell in love with in the first part, now they are in love with an entirely different person.
Amazing. So I think the one question on all of our minds when we heard of this book, World's Best Ex-Girlfriend, it almost sounds like an oxymoron, right? So, I mean, do you think in real life it's possible for a world's best ex-girlfriend to exist? Or have you observed a world's best ex-girlfriend without without contradicting the very essence of a breakup?
I think every breakup story, I mean, if you get two people in the room and ask them that, please tell me your breakup story, the story that you will hear from those two people are going to be wildly, completely different. So, of course, when a breakup happens, you cannot expect them to say, that, yeah, this was the best relationship of my life, but now she's an ex-girlfriend and she's the best one. But of course, you put some distance in it and you change enough to realize what went wrong. I think it's it can happen. So it's an extension of the question that can exes be friends? For the first couple of years, absolutely not, because you're fresh. I mean, it's a wrong terminology, but you feel like you still own a part of that person and she owns a part of you. You're too close. But after a few years, I think you have changed enough to know that, okay, this person was in love with a different person, different version of me. So now that I've changed, let me try to understand this person as a new one. So I think that when sufficient time has gone by, you can say that, okay, yeah, I'm friends with my ex, or she was an ex-girlfriend, but out of all my exes, I think she's the best one.
She's the world's best. So, the very description of this session was why literature will always need a love story. So, straight question to you, Durjoy. Why do you think literature will always need a love story?
I don't think that it does. I don't think that it does. Okay, so let me find a reason why it does. Okay, why it can. So as I said, I started writing about myself because there were only a few, and firstly I was arrogant that I thought that whatever is happening with me is great, is the best version of any young boy's life. And the things that I was concerned about were whether I'm getting a good job and who am I dating. Because I was concerned about these two things, and a lot of young people are concerned about these two things, they want to see their reflection in books. So they gravitate towards, say, picking a book that is about a young person and their trials and tribulations in getting a job or finding a loved one.
Something that is relatable.
Yeah, something that's relatable. So when romance comes there, they will pick up the book, they'll read it, and that can be the gateway to other books. So I think romance is an easier into reading more books. So yeah, other than that, I mean, as I said, that I did not, because my books were all prescribed by my parents, I did not need that step ladder of reading romance. For me, that was thrillers, so I read thrillers and then I went on to other forms of books. But I think romance can act as a good gateway drug to other books.
Okay. So, Durjoy, next question. Next is, you have garnered a massive fan following over the years. I mean, let's hear a cheer for that, guys, please. Whoa, I mean, that's proof of pudding right there. So, now when you write a book, are you consciously or subconsciously somewhere influenced by what maybe your readers will think when you're writing something new? Or does that not come into your thought at all?
I can say this for sure, that if I think too much about it, it results in a very bad book. So my first book was published in college, of course. I did not care about readership because, I mean, I wrote the book, I did not expect it to get published. I sent it across to a publisher and they said, okay, we want to publish that book. At that point in time, I was satisfied that I have written a book and it's getting published. I do not care if anyone reads this or not. I'm happy. The first print run was 2,000 copies and I'm going, no one's going to buy it. Eventually, you are going to have to pulp it. So I was happy with that as well. The second, the third, the fourth, the fifth book came out. By the time the sixth book came out, my publisher told me that, Durjoy, the reason why your sales are dipping is because you're writing the same thing again and again. I used to get the same feedback from a lot of people, and the reason was that I wasn't taking writing seriously because I did not think that writing was a profession. I was in college. I was doing my MBA. Then I started working. I did not think that I could turn this into a career. So I said, okay, this is a hobby. I will do whatever I can on the side, and that's why the quality of books dipped down. So on the sixth book, I said, this is make or break. I need to write a really good book. So let me go back to the first book and see what I did there and replicate the exact formula on my sixth book. My sixth book was the worst of them all. It did not. How many of you know of this book, You Are My Crush? I'm so sorry that you know of that book. But others, please buy it still. Okay? It's how to not write a book. So I think that book I realized that I cannot reverse engineer a bestseller. So I have to write what I feel I can write. So after that I stopped sort of thinking that, okay, what will work, what will not work. But beyond that also, say, for example, I wrote this book when I just had my kid. It was named The Perfect Us. It is about two people in their mid-30s trying to have a kid, not being able to have a kid, going through IVF and the entire journey. And my publishers read that book and they were like, Durjoy, your audience is 17-year-old girls. I mean, they were exaggerating to make me shelve that book. No one is going to read that book. And I was like, but it was an experience that I had seen. So a lot of my friends were going through it. So I was like, yeah, this is what's happening in everyone's life. So I wrote that book, came out, and it was a huge, I mean, it was very well received. Thank you. Buy that
Great
book.
round of applause, please.
Buy that book also. So when that worked, it sort of, I mean, so these things have continually happened where I have gone with my gut and I have written the book that I wanted to write. But there are books that I really wanted to write, like A Touch of Eternity, which is a blend of romance and sci-fi. It did not work.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
To be very honest.
Thank you. Did not work. Buy the book. So I went with the gut. It did not work, but I can go ahead and read the book. So I find it very hard going back to my books and reading them. But A Touch of Eternity, I can, because a lot of people did not like it. I'm like, no, it is okay. So I've stopped trying to think of. And anyway, when you crack a fresh idea, as a writer, you are so excited that everything else sort of recedes into the background. You cannot think, you are not thinking about the readers anymore. You're thinking about your own excitement with the book. Maybe in the second draft, of course, second draft, I think your second draft is for the reader. It's like, we have all experienced this, that sometimes you watch a movie or you're watching a video, you find it very funny, but then you're showing it to your friend and suddenly you're very nervous. You're like, will this person laugh at the same jokes? Why is she not laughing at the same jokes? You get a little nervous, right? So second draft, it's like that I'm showing it to a reader and then I'm asking that, does this work? Does this not work? And then I'm editing according to that. But having said that, I cannot write the first draft thinking of the reader.
Amazing. So you have a beautiful family that we see regularly on social media, two beautiful little girls, your beautiful wife, Avantika. You just said your second draft is for the reader. So are your wife and your kids your critics yet? I mean, your kids are very small, I know, but are they your critics yet?
So my kid is growing up in a very warped environment because she goes up to kids in a class and says, your dad is not a writer? What does he do then? So do you not have books that have your name in it? Because a lot of books are dedicated to, to Raina and to Avantika. You don't have your name in a book? What's wrong with you? But my wife, she has, we used to have huge fights earlier because she used to give me feedback. And my first reaction is that, how many books have you written?
Ouch.
And she was like, I did not ask you to send me a book. You told me to give me feedback. I am giving you feedback. Now take it. So then we had a lot of, in the initial years of our relationship, we used to have these fights. And then I realized that the problem is not the feedback. The problem is the feedback. No writer wants feedback. Okay, a writer is sending you the book, he wants praise. He does not want feedback. The problem is that it's been given in an audio format. So I told her that now whatever feedback you have, please put it across in mail. So what happens in a mail is that a mail comes, I can read it a little, and the minute I'm a little uncomfortable, I can close it. And then I can go back. And then, because I realized that after 2 weeks, whatever our fight was, I agree with most of her feedback. It's just that I don't want it to be given. So, so
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
yeah. Even now there are mail there that I'm sending you this document. All criticism has to be on mail. Please do not acknowledge this email verbally. So, so since we started doing that, I think that's because then I can formulate my response to it without getting angry. So I have to remind myself that she's getting no joy out of giving me criticism. It's because I've asked her. So I have to keep telling. I know it's very stupid, it's very childish, but I think writers are a bit childish.
So, time for a fun question now. If you had the opportunity to bring any one of your characters to life, or let's say all your characters came to life, who would you be best friends with? And who would you like really want to like put back inside the book?
I think all of my characters in my first few books were so problematic, and I can hide behind the thing that they were product of their times, but they were genuinely problematic. So they are not coming out. But there's one character I wrote. You Were My Crush. The main guy. He was a rich guy. And he was connected to another character in my other book who was very inspired from my own self. So they were brothers. And this cousin brother used to splurge on this boy, which was me. So I want him to come to life so that I can finally not count the number of copies I'm selling. So buy my books, okay? I want to stop counting.
Please buy the books. So, I think this is one question that I think you have been asked a lot, but I'm still going to ask it once again. Your first book, the characters are named Deb and Avantika. Your protagonist is a Bengali boy studying engineering. That is undoubtedly you, and you have admitted that. So do you think in a way you have manifested your wife into your life? I mean, it's a but obvious question.
Probably. I get very uncomfortable when people say manifest. It's, it's and when it works, I get even more irritated. But I can tell you this, that she definitely manifested me in her life. In fact, she bullied me into her life. So she was reading my books and she was like, so I did not know Avantika personally, but she was the first protagonist of my first book. So she was like, okay, so this guy is definitely writing about himself, and he's writing about this imaginary girl who's called Avantika, and Avantika looks like me also. So I got to meet this guy and tell him that I'm mentally dating him. So she read first book, second book, third book, fourth book. So 5 books there is Avantika. So finally she got hold of me and she said, see, you are dating me mentally and I think this is me. So we should start dating in real. So she definitely bullied me into that, okay, now enough of dating in the books, we need to start dating in real. And yeah, so I don't know if that's how manifestation worked, but yeah.
In some way it did. Okay, so you have written about yourself, you've written about people that you've seen in your life. Has anybody, apart from Avantika, obviously, who you were not aware of when you were writing about her, have you taken a character from real life, written about them, and then they have recognized themselves and come back to you?
All the time. Now they have stopped telling me their secrets because I make them into plot points and put them in the books. But it's very hard not to. So I won't say that I have picked out an entire character and put them in the book, but I have definitely put interesting incidents that might have happened to them and attributed it to a few characters. And my friends, they're okay with it. They recognize it in the books and they're like, yeah, we know this is what you have done. But having on the point of getting inspired from people around me, I think I used to do that very often when I was younger. But as I've grown older, I think I've stopped doing that. There's only so many interesting things that can happen to friends of yours, and there's a whole wild world out there, and a lot of more interesting things happen, and more interesting things can happen in your mind than in real life. So earlier, of course, because I used to be, as a young writer, you are also thinking that, okay, this is the most interesting world, I need to write about this. But as you grow older and, you have more exposure to more books, more writers, you realize that, okay, don't need to sort of, be cloistered in this environment you can write about more things. Like, for example, I thought that I can only write books set in college. In fact, by the time the 6th book came out, which was like a huge flop, there was criticism that, okay, this guy can only write books which are set in college. And I took that criticism seriously. I was like, okay, let me write a book that's not set in college and let me move out. And I wrote a book that is entirely set in a hospital and which only has older characters, and all the characters were mostly older than me as well. So, I mean, I moved beyond writing just about me or my friends because they just ran out of stories.
So when writing, of course, 15 years of writing, when you write characters or when you build stories or when you build plot points, are you ever afraid of the fact that, maybe something might not be as fresh to the reader? Are you afraid of, in a way, stereotypes? Or are you afraid of people putting you in a box, or people putting your characters in a box, whereas you may not have intended to write them in that way? Or has it happened?
There's something that I believe very strongly, that there's no new story that you can tell. You go out in the bookstore and read any blurb, and you just put that in ChatGPT and say, suggest me similar books. You will find at least 20 books on exactly the same concept. So whenever I'm thinking of something, of a concept, the first thing I do is I go to Amazon and get a few books which are on the same things. I read those books, and then I convince myself that the way I am thinking about this story is different, because I am different than those writers. So although your blurb and the kernel of the story might be similar, the way you tell the story is, otherwise romance is what? A guy and a girl meet, and they have a meet cute, they have a courtship period, they are in a relationship, something happens, and we have entire books written on how to write books and how to write a hero's journey or how to write a screenplay, etc., how to tell a story. And most stories follow that pattern. But it's what you bring to the table is what's different. So of course I have spent countless hours, agonizing that, I came about this concept, but someone has written it. What do? Would you not write? No, but you feel so strongly about this, you will write it differently. So I used to agonize over it, as I said, but now I know that whatever it is, I'm feeling strongly about this, I need to write this story, and I know that I will write it differently, and it's going to be absolutely 100% different from whatever I've seen in other books.
Amazing. And I think your books are also different from your previous books. I think that's like you said, that's the magic, and, writing something fresh, writing something new, and that's why people love you so much and people love your work so much. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we can expect. After World's Best Ex-Girlfriend, what's next? What are you thinking? What are you hoping? And what is in the pipeline?
So, as I said, I've not grown up reading romance. I've grown up reading thrillers, and thrillers and fantasy are two books that I really want to do. The only problem with those two genres that I face is that if you write fantasy in India, you have to hark back to, or you have to make some allusions to mythology. And I'm not into that. So for me to write a fantasy book which does not have any grounding in mythology is very hard for me to sort of pitch and sell. Second is thrillers. I have grown up reading a lot of police procedurals, and when I try to imagine it in the Indian context, it just doesn't fit. So I wrote a romance thriller which came out in 2008, and it did well, but I haven't had the courage to write it again. But now, since I said that I'm in my late 30s and writing a romance is getting slightly trickier for me, I am writing another thriller. It's a bunch of students trying to crack open a cold case, and how they go about doing it. So that is my next book in a nutshell. I'm very excited about it because I'm writing a thriller after 4 or 5 years, and it's interesting to me.
Amazing. I'm sure we're all very excited at that prospect. Finally, what one scene or moment in World's Best Ex-Girlfriend that is your favorite, and why? Without any spoilers, of course, but which is your favorite moment in the book, which maybe you love as a reader, or one that you're particularly proud of?
Um, it's hard to pick one, but I've been very bad at keeping lovers at a distance. Whenever there is sexual tension between them, I sort of unite them. It's very hard. I mean, I, I feel all you have to do is have one conversation, right? Just have that conversation and get it over with. You know, I always fail to maintain that sort of resistance to give in and change yourself for the person in front of you. I mean, yeah, please change yourself and be together. But in World's Best Ex-Girlfriend, I think I've done it 2 or 3 times where there is so much love and they want to be together and they can see a future together, but the present is not right. And that's why they don't give in. So that happens a couple of times, and every time I wrote it, I was like, yes, I've cracked something.
And that broke something in all of us that we didn't know could be broken. I mean, we hate you for it. And one moment that, maybe one particular moment that you think readers will like a lot.
I think they will hate me for it, but they will remember the book for how it ends.
If you've not read it, please do, because it will break you. Okay, I think we are ready to open the floor to the audience. If you have any questions addressed to Durjoy. Okay, we have quite a few questions. Can we pass the mic to the gentleman over there?
Hello. So first of all, congratulations, sir, for your 20th book. My question to you is, what is the dilemma which you face while writing a new book, which you were facing while writing your first book in 2008? That was, of course, I Love You Till I Find Someone Better. And because the places are changed, you were, at that very point of time, you were in Delhi, in Pritampura. And me, being a Delhi boy, I kind of relate with you because the audience over there is solely different from somewhere else audience. So, yeah.
How has my thought process changed between the first and the... Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so when I was writing my first book, I wasn't thinking. The only reason I finished my first book is because I wasn't thinking about anything else. So before I was a writer, I used to write a blog. So my blog used to be, I used to go to college and do whatever, and I used to come back home and write a fictionalized version of it, make it as interesting as possible, and send the links to like all the other bloggers. We used to all read each other and say, you are a good writer. It used to be like a small circle jerk sort of a thing. Everyone is a good writer in this circle. So someone there told me that you're a very good writer and you should write it. You should write a book on it. And because I was the youngest of the group and I was the most arrogant, I was like, yeah, you are saying it, I must be a great writer. So I'm going to write that book. So the first book I finished because I just wanted to have that feeling of having finished writing a book. Now what has changed over the last 15 years is that now I have already taken an advance for a book. So that is always playing on my mind, that I have to be absolutely sure about what I'm writing, and I cannot quit the book halfway. So earlier I could have quit, right? There was nothing at stake, but now there's a lot at stake. Now when I start writing a book, I have to finish it. So there's a lot of planning. So earlier I was purely a writer who used to write 2 characters on a page and let them flow. Let's see where the story goes. After 7-8 months, we'll decide whether this is a book or not. Now I need to have a fair idea of where the story is going. I need to have a fair idea what the plot is. I need to have a fair idea what at least the last act of the book is. So that has fundamentally changed for my writing. But of course, I'm making it sound like it's a bad thing, but it gives me a direction, that this is where I'm going with my book. So that is what has changed.
Oh, so many questions. Maybe the lady at the back with the glasses. Can we have a mic, please? Yeah. Please stand up. Yeah. Please stand up. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we can do one after the other. We'll come back to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. As you are quite active on social media, what is your process of storytelling on short form content or reels? Because you are an author of long form writing, like novels. And so, yeah. And novels are definitely not as short as reels. So. Yes.
So, how many of you have seen my reels on Instagram? So less people have bought my books. Okay, okay. So I have been on the internet for a really long time. So I was there when Orkut was there. I was there when Facebook was there, and 5,000 friends used to be like gold standard of being popular. Then there was Facebook pages. Then there was Instagram, the earlier version where Instagram was basically a broadcast platform. That okay, you have followed me, now see what I'm eating, or look at how cute my kid is. But now Instagram has changed. Now Instagram is an entertainment platform where people follow me because they have read my books. But now they're like, you have written books and all, it's fine, but ab tu naach ke dikha. So for the longest time, I did not know what to do on Instagram because I was using it like a broadcast platform. That my new book has come out, please go and buy it. Or I'm on a vacation, this is what I'm eating. This is what my family looks like. I was using Instagram like that. But I had this itch of creating content because everyone was doing it. And for me, everything is cringe, right? So I'm seeing everyone create cringe, but I want to be a part of that cringe, right? So I hankered for it, that what can I do here? That is when I found a few creators who were doing storytelling videos. So I don't know whether you guys know this or not, but Saurabh Yadav and Satvik Soni. So these are the two creators who I watched them and I was like, yeah, I can do what they're doing. And for the first couple of reels, I just aped them. That okay, let me just tell a story like this. And believe you me, when I saw those reels for the first time, I'm like, this is like cringe max. There is no way I'm posting this. But what happened was, because people accepted it, and because I started reading comments, I started watching my own stuff again and again. I started realizing that maybe there is some value here as well. That you can crunch a big story in a smaller form and drive some impact. So it took me a really long time to take it seriously, and now that I've taken it seriously, I find that it also gives me joy. It's the same kind of journey that I had with screenwriting. So screenwriting, when I came in, so they called me. I was in Delhi, and they called me that okay, we have a new show. It's about a girl in a mechanical engineering college, and we need a mechanical engineer to write the show. And my reaction was, and I had seen TV, and TV is so bad. I was like, TV has writers? What are you saying? Because in my head, sitting in Delhi, television was a director calls the actors and says, you say one line, we'll show it 3 times. So for me, TV was that. I came in, I was like, TV is so bad, and you have like a bunch of writers writing this badly. But then I started to realize why TV is like that. Because, say your best show, Game of Thrones, comes up with 8 seasons in 15 years, 7 episodes, and even after that, they screw up 2 seasons, right? Now, television writers, Indian television writers, they are cranking out an episode every day, 22 minutes of content. So, of course, it's going to be bad. But then when I got into it, I realized that even creating that, it takes a lot of brain power, because every week, TRP comes and you have to manage like expectations of hundreds and thousands of people, and you're trying to find the lowest common denominator so that your show works. So you have to write like that. So it was a journey from hating it to sort of finding value and what can you deliver in this. So when it comes to reels, I have had the same journey. This is all of this is cringe, and what are people doing? Ye to maine pehle suna hua hai, etc., etc. And all of the things that you see in reels, you have already heard it before. It's just that the creator is putting their spin on it. So now finally I have sort of made my peace with it, that this is an art form and I need to take it seriously. And I think it is giving me dividends, because all of you have not read my books but seen my reels. And but yeah, now I spend a considerable amount of time trying to tell a story in 1.5 minutes. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Okay. Okay, yes, you were, yes. Please, can we have a mic?
I have 2 questions actually. The first is, when is Raghu and Brahma's 3rd book coming? Is it ever coming? Like, we are like literally quenching for it.
I also don't know. I wish there was a fan fiction so that I can get inspired by that fan fiction and
I think
eventually
there
write
is
it.
somewhere in the Wattpad or somewhere.
I think one of these girls will be ready to write one.
Please,
Please,
please
do
we
write
would
and
love
send.
to. We would love to. There are some people from us, like we are Kolkata bookworms, some people, so we would love to help you with that part.
See, those are
Some
problem solved.
inspirations. And the second question is, I know that you have written in different kind, I would say, genre, like if it's not forever, it's not love, it's like a ride, going on a ride. It's like go with the flow kind. The girl of my dreams, a bit of a thriller. Then the love, our favorite boy with broken heart, the tragic one that we got hooked to. So is there any particular genre that you wrote, loved, but thought that it could be done better and that you are planning to write again? Or write in that genre, but very different, now with a more flushed characters, different kind of plot line, and very like matured stories and everything?
I don't think I'll ever. There's still time for me to mature, but but I think there's a touch of eternity. I wrote it with a lot of heart. So people who do not know, a touch of eternity is love, reincarnation, and sci-fi all mixed.
And both of them live
Yeah,
in.
and till the time the first negative review came in, I was like, this is the most perfect book I've ever written. And when they started streaming in, I sort of got very disheartened because I was like, if this bangs, I'm going to go double down and write a bunch of these books. And I still want to understand what, for people that it did not resonate with, I still want to understand what did not resonate, or how could I have done it differently to make that book work, or to make that
We
book.
loved it. We definitely loved it. But maybe the sci-fi part.
I'm so
which you
sorry to
added-
interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt, dear. I think there are a lot of more people who are willing to ask questions. Can we have the mic to the gentleman on the corner, please?
Hi, Durjoy. Durjoy, a lot of people cannot take a strong decision like you. That's why I just want to know how difficult was to make a decision to quit a job to become a full-time writer, especially when you are a really successful mechanical engineer.
So I think I took that decision after I had already written 7 or 8 books. And the reasons why I took that decision is, everyone's conditions are different, right? So I had written 8 books. Those 9 books were working. And this was in 2011, 2012, where it was almost fashionable to leave your conventional job, try something else, and come back to your conventional job. And that was my pitch to my parents, because for me, I was very young. I was not thinking that much that, okay, this is a very brave decision. For me, it was more out of bravado. Yeah, so what? What's the worst that could happen? Nothing. I will come back to my job. So for me, the decision was very simple. So this is what I keep telling people. If you have to take that decision when you're in your early 30s or mid 30s, it's extremely difficult. The younger you are, the more dumber decisions you can take, because all those decisions are almost irreversible. What if I had failed at 26? Nothing. I could have just gone back to my employer and said that I tried something out and it failed and now I'm coming back. Take me at my earlier salary. I'm ready to be 2 years behind from my peers. It doesn't matter to me that much. So for me, the decision, I know when I say it to people, they say that, yeah, it's a brave decision. You left everything you did. So I also did my MBA after my engineering. So for them, you did your postgrad and then you left everything. For me, it was like, it doesn't matter. It's just 2 years. At 26, 2 years is nothing. But you take that decision at 35. It's a huge leap. So from my side, it was, it was not a brave decision. It was the logical decision to take.
Amazing. Okay, the lady in the white sari, please.
Hello, Durjoy. I've been manifesting this for the longest period now, and I've been freaking out from the moment you replied to me yesterday on Instagram. So, yeah, I have 2 questions. Number 1 is, how do you manage, or how do you get the motivation to write down when you have Q2 button and Momo around you? That is one. And the second is, I have read 16 books by you. And I've been reading you since the time I was 15, now I'm 21. So it's been a long journey. And what I have noticed and what I like the most is that most of your main characters have the initials D and A. So again, is it coincidental or is it just intentional? Can you please say?
Okay, it cannot be coincident. I mean, it's very obvious. So when I start writing a book, I always write it with Durjoy Datta, and then I start changing names midway through the book or at the end. And the second part, how do I manage parenthood and writing? I don't manage it well. Because you see me on Instagram, you see that I'm managing it well, but I don't manage it well. In fact, I think my motivation to write had severely dipped when my first daughter was born. And I remember telling this to Avantika that I feel all my ambition drain out. Because every time I want to close the door and write my book, I'm like, I'm not spending enough time with, although I'm a stay-at-home dad, I mean, no one is spending more time with their kids as I am. But even then, to find that motivation, it took me a few years. I mean, at least 2 or 3 years, after which I found my ambition back and I have to write and I have to consistently write and find. I almost, for a moment, I almost lost the joy of writing because, all my joy was taken up by my kids, but now I found it back. So also, it's difficult. If you're not going out and working, if you're working at home with kids, it's extremely difficult. It's extreme. I mean, a lot of women do it anyway, but it's difficult. So first 5 years of my kids' life, I used to go at every book launch and tell them, don't have a kid. Girls, please do not have a kid. Please, please delay it as long as possible.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
think we will take one last question. And, the lady in green, please.
Hi Durjoy, I'm Srishtha. I have a very different question actually. I remember reading your book when I was in school. I was 13 at that point. Then I read it when I was 21 and I'm 26 and I am reading your current book. So over this time, what I have noticed is romance has been a very elemental thing in your writing. But have you read some book which is not a romance? You have taken different turns in romance though, but completely different. It can be thriller, it can be a historical fiction or something, and you just read it and thought that maybe you would write something like that someday.
Yeah, all the time. So, I mean, most of the books that I like are not romance at all. But when I start writing it, somehow I write two characters who eventually interact and fall in love with each other. I mean, I try to keep myself away, but eventually it happens. But of course, I'm not married to the fact that I have to write romance. But there's always this thing that people keep telling you that you are something and then you start believing in it. And then and subconsciously you sort of adopt that, okay, you're a romance writer, write romance, you do it well, why not? Even if you're telling a story that is not about romance, say The Boy Who Loved is not a romance novel, but the characters fall in love, right? The Boy with a Broken Heart is not a romance, but they fall in love.
Finds its
Yeah,
way.
so, I mean, again, going back to A Touch of Eternity, I mean, romance is the least interesting thing about the book. It could be best friends as well. So, I think it's finding yourself in a rut and then saying that, yeah, this is okay. I mean, this is what I'm doing to package my book.
The last thing, can you just tell us a few of your favorite books?
So I'm very bad at this, but I tell you the last few good books that I have read. So my new favorite, so I get obsessed with a writer and then I pick everything by the writer. So Dolly Alderton, so she wrote this hugely successful book, All I Know About Love. And then she wrote this novel called Good Material, which is about, she's a woman, of course. And she wrote this 350 page book about a guy moaning about a breakup. And it is so well written. I was like, how does she know this? So that is one book that I've recently finished. I'm reading Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. It is incredible. I gravitate towards books where there is a nihilist male character who's into drugs, etc. Because I have never gone through that cycle. I was like, yeah, so cool. This guy wants to self-destruct himself. That is another one that I liked. And what else? What else did I read? Yeah, I read the last book that Richard Osman came out with, his new series, We Solve Murders. Again, extremely funny, extremely witty. I really liked that one. yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Durjoy. It has been lovely talking to you, and thank you. You have been an amazing audience. I think you will be here signing books for our lovely audiences, and whoever would like to get your book signed, click a selfie with Durjoy, maybe. And thank you so much. Good afternoon, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.